Killers of the Flower Moon recently premiered at Cannes Film Festival. While we plebes wait for its theatrical release in October later this year, we take a look back at the 2006 Martin Scorsese masterpiece, The Departed. Issue number 9 of Last Page. I am Maverick King, joined today by the powers of the internet, Jason Cedars, RemingtonCKing, and special guest, Zach Glenn, who is half of the host of the great podcast, Idiotalk, a Radiohead podcast, a great place for all things music, a terrible place for people like myself who love the band Disturbed. Thank you for joining me very much today, everybody. And I am very excited to talk about this movie. This is a movie that's an incredible feat, and I consider this right up there with Scorsese's best. And lot to get to, lot to talk about. But I wanted to start this off because I was not allowed to see this movie when it first came out. I was too young for my parents' comfort, and so Zach Glenn, you were the one that told me about this movie, and you told me about your theatrical experience and the impact on you. If you can start us off with that story.
Sure. Firstly, I just want to say thanks for having me. I love your guys' show. I love talking about movies, and I'm really excited to talk about this movie. So my theatrical experience. So I saw it. I don't know when it was released. It feels like it was maybe in October of like 2000. It was a fall release, I feel like. And I saw it, October, November. I was really excited. And I went with two friends, and it was just like on a random Wednesday night or whatever. And I was just completely floored. But, even to this day, when I watch it, I'm caught up in the suspense to a degree. It's like when you know what's going to happen, but you kind of get the opportunity to like look around and find new things or whatever. So it's a long movie, right? It's like, over 2.5 hours long. And so I had to go pee like, I don't know, an hour and a half in, but things were, the tension was ratcheting up for sure. So I run to the bathroom and run back out. And it was, like I say, it was a Wednesday night. We grew up in a really small town. So maybe 5 to 7 other people in the theater. And I was there with my two buddies, and just totally unconsciously, I, went to the side of the theater that they were on, but I jumped in between two other dudes, like a totally different group of friends that I was like, oh, there's my two friends. And I went and sat in the middle of them and got re-engaged in the movie for, at least 1 to 2 minutes. And I started to somehow realize, I don't know what tipped me off, but like maybe the person's armed, and, it was like a much older man's arm than my other 16-year-old or 17-year-old friend. And I look at both of them, and they're both going, like, just totally baffled by my confidence and my presence. And too nice, but like everybody always talks about, like, oh, if you're in an elevator, look at the wall, people will freak out or whatever. It's like, I'm telling you, if you're in a party with two other people, go sit in between another party that has too much gay panic to sit close to one another, and therefore open themselves up to some person too engaged in a movie to know what's going on. So that's kind of I don't know if that's the story you were looking for, but
it was not the story. That was a completely different story than the one I thought.
Oh my God.
I was referring to you leaving the theater and driving in your car, and you were telling me that it was silence, and you were just thinking about all of like the final act of the movie, which, spoiler alert, we're going to spoil everything in this movie. You haven't seen The Departed yet. Like, what are you, a fitness freak? Go fuck yourself. So you were saying that when you saw that movie, you were driving back home, and then like you tried to turn the radio on, and then you just quickly turned it off because you're like, no. Like you wanted it to like simmer more in your brain. You don't remember this?
No, I do. I love that you remember that. Yeah, it's definitely just one of those movies. Like it's definitely the Scorsese movie I've seen the most. I've seen this movie so many times. But yeah, I think that, like a lot of Scorsese movies, it has, a few moments that really pop. And, most of the time we think of that as like a violent moment in a Scorsese movie. And this certainly has those. But, I don't know that I'd really seen any of his films. I'd not seen Goodfellas or, Casino or anything like that are maybe somewhat in this vein. And so, yeah, it blew my mind. And like you said, spoilers. So like by the end when you have all this buildup, and then to one of your main character that you're rooting for, kind of unceremoniously get taken out, it really sits with you. And yeah, I totally remember that. I love that stuck with you. That's so awesome.
Yeah, when I can only fantasize about watching Marty Scorsese movies. Jason, you rewatched the movie. Give me your thoughts. What are your initial thoughts of rewatching this movie, and how long had it been since your last watch?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. It has been a little while. Like I feel like I rewatched Casino and Goodfellas, a couple of his other movies on at least a couple year uh, basis. But no, it's been quite a few years since I watched this. Where it was a point where I kind of forgot what was going on at one point. Like when Leo gets shot, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, that happens. Because when he's going down the elevator, I'm like, how did this play out again? How does he like get his name back and everything? And then when it happens, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. This isn't such a good ending for our lead character. Absolutely love this movie, and it is definitely the cast that I think brings you back to watching him. It's a great story and everything, and it's fun. The spy versus spy kind of espionage kind of feel to this movie, and the anxiety that Leo has the entire time. I think you start to really feel it, and how quickly you go from liking Matt Damon to hating Matt Damon. There's like these little things about some of the characters that I really love. But yeah, I could watch this movie every year for the rest of my life and probably still find things and quote stuff from Alec or Mark Wahlberg, which, God, Mark Wahlberg, every time I watch this one, it's like I want to start talking and acting like him right when I come out of the movie. Just this asshole, that's just incredibly funny. So I can't remember what ratings that we're doing for this movie. If
we'll get to our ratings at the end. But yeah, you have time to come up with your thumbs up or down or whatever.
Yeah.
Wait, real quick, can I just show you my Leo? Jason, you were mentioning Leo's anxiety level. Can I show you my Leo anxious broken man face real quick?
Please do.
So right now it's like the scene where he like is taking movie pills. It's always, they can never just say like Xanax or whatever, but whatever it is. Yeah, sure. And he's looking at the bottle, and he's killing I like that he's just drinking from the wine bottle. And then there's also, sorry.
Yeah. It is so here. He holds a lot of his emotion in his forehead. It's always like just scrunkled. Yeah. But yeah, I love that movie. Absolutely love that movie. So I'm happy to talk about it.
Easily my favorite Scorsese film. Easily. And that's not any disrespect to Goodfellas. I can differentiate that. I think Goodfellas is Scorsese's best, but I enjoy this movie more. And I've seen this movie, I think this has got to be my 6th or 7th time watching it, I want to say. Been a minute. Been at least, I think I watched it maybe 3 years ago. And it ages like fine wine. Just as good, if not better, every time you watch it. Yeah, so enjoyable. Great. It is 2.5 hours, but the pacing is phenomenal. It builds so well, and it does such a good job of every scene. It's something important or engrossing happens. So it's very interesting that through a 2.5 hour movie, I'm like, I never feel the need to get up to go do something else or to pause. I just can sit down and watch that movie all the way through, which is saying a lot for me because I do not, as you know, like to watch anything over 2 hours if I don't have to. So
This movie is incredibly tight. And one of the reasons it won 4 Oscars, nominated for 5, all 4 of the winners is 1 Best Picture, 1 Best Directing, Marty Scorsese, Best Screenplay, and the screenplay. The dialogue in this movie is so great. All the actors, obviously, this is one of the best ensemble cast performances we've ever seen in a movie. But the screenplay and the dialogue it gives everyone to work with is so beautiful by William Monahan. And then the editing, especially, and this is one of the things I love most about Marty Scorsese movies, the opening of a movie, the first 20, 30 minutes is always so perfect. and perfectly gets your attention from when it starts. And in this movie, it's the opening scene. And it's the only kind of a rare thing in a Martin Scorsese movie. It's the only voiceover we get is the very beginning of the movie where Jack Nicholson is talking over the footage of the race riots in Boston. And you get the classic Gimme Shelter playing by Rolling Stones. And that kicks off the movie. But we don't even get the opening, The Departed title, till about 20 minutes into the movie. And
I love the way that's so when it's so understated for how overstated the moment is. It's so cool.
No, I wrote it down. It's 18 minutes.
18 minutes. There you go.
You see The Departed, because you get the origin of Matt and Leo's character within that time, and it just sets up the movie, and then it goes, and it's like, you're so right, Remy. It's like every scene they capitalize on movement of every character, and especially that beginning scene.
When you're rewatching it now, I think Jason nailed it. It's like early on, you're kind of rooting for Matt Damon. He's like, seems like this cool, like, yeah, he's a crooked cop, but like he's got swagger, he's got charisma. Seems like everything in his life is going well. Whereas everything in Leo's life is going to shit. But yeah, how do you see it, or at least rewatching it now?
Definitely, initially, like both characters. I like the two sides of the same coin. Essentially, right? That's the idea. Is that it's because everybody who watches and gets anybody who's into gangster movies, there's always the back of your head that's fantasizing of just like, oh, if I was in that life, it'd be like everybody everybody in their fantasies wants to taste, or not everybody, but some people, like probably most of us, want to fantasize with the idea of tasting the dark side of life. And so Matt Damon being that character of good guy, good boy cop, but has his hand in the dirt at the same time reflects the duality of man and no, I'm just kidding. But I do think that early on it's you like both characters, and then it's just over the course of the movie that their stocks just go in opposite directions. Like Matt, as the movie goes on, you just hate him a little bit more and more. And Leo, as it goes on, you just feel more and more for the character, and you really just, yeah. And the rooting for him it's gradual, in the same way that rooting against Matt is gradual, where it's not just so black and white at the beginning of the movie that you're like, oh, this is the super dirty crooked cop. they don't show him like killing an innocent person just like without any sense of justice. It's just and Leo, it doesn't do anything super heroic in the beginning, but as the movie goes on, you get a really nice, well, I guess I'm not so much talking about the rest of the movie, but yeah, early on it just sets a tone for similar but different for these two characters. And I think as the movie plays out, it's just kind of like the initial fuse that gets lit, and then they just go in totally different directions.
Talking about like wanting to be someone, it's more like you wanting to be Jack in the beginning, that first scene where he's walking into that, like, I don't know if it's a coffee shop or a convenience store, because
it's like a bodega,
but it's like a very
what?
A bodega.
Like, we don't have those in California.
Yes. But there's a lot of those in the movie where they're like eating inside a gas station. I'd be like, I would not be eating inside here, But when Jack walks in and he's like, 2 loaves of bread, 4 things of milk, mayo, candy, like
Wolverine comic. I always love that touch.
Yes. Like everyone wants to be him at some point, to be like, I want to walk into a convenience store and just buy all the shit and give away money and give a handful of change to a kid and be like, hey, you want some more of that? Come talk to me.
I love the opening. I think it's really tight. It is for my money, it's the first example we have of de-aging in a big budget film. So Jack Nicholson, they do shoot him in shadow the entire time. And the moment Jason was just talking about, it's all. But even if you look at his hand, you can see that like it's kind of funny too, because I think Jack is like 85 today, and this movie was shot really, really quickly. I think at the end of 2004, so he would have been 65, and they have to make him look 65, But yeah, I mean, he's in shadow, or it doesn't show his face, or just in profile through the whole time, and then he leans in and he gets hit with the light, and you can tell that there's CGI trickery in the way that technology should be used. When Peter Cushing comes out of the light for a second, you're like, oh, and then you're like, oh, why do I hate this? But yeah, and that is true. They did do some early technology on that so that you could set him in the scene. And I love Scorsese does this thing that I feel like he has invented a genre of film in doing this, in that he will cover obviously other stories and directors do this. They'll cover 25 years through visual clues, and in this case voiceover narration, and they do that in Goodfellas, and they do it in Casino a little bit, and in some of his other movies. But in this one, he sets the year, and then you get that young actor who I don't even know if he looks like young Matt Damon, but when it cuts from the kid's face to Matt Damon, who is doing this through the whole movie,
little eye thing,
it just works so well. And Scorsese, I think, covers 20 to 25 year spans of time better, with almost 3 to 5 minutes just devoted to them, better than any director I've ever seen. And when I say he's invented a genre of film, is because usually, like Forrest Gump, by Robert Zemeckis, there has to be a zillion clues, right, as to what time you're living in. Oh, it's and that's fine, but I think Scorsese does it tighter, and to where you don't even know what's happened, and you feel like you know this character even though you've only spent 5 minutes with him, and the kid had 2 speaking lines. And I don't want to. I'm sure you guys will laugh, but like how long it took me to invoke Stanley Kubrick. But Scorsese's favorite Kubrick film is Barry Lyndon, and it's his favorite movie overall. And Barry Lyndon takes place over 25, 30 years. And it does work in these big chunks of time. And I've always thought that's really interesting, because it's like it came out in 75, a year after Scorsese's, the movie that really, 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 really put him on the main stage, is like, this is like a great American director in Taxi Driver. And I just think you can really see that, like, as far, because he does that in a lot of his films, whether it's kind of necessary to the plot or not. He seems to love stretching it out. All that to say, I love the intro. I think it's really efficient. I've seen this movie many, many times. And I love when you have seen, I would call this movie a perfect movie, which I do not think it's without flaws, but it is so good. The sum total of it is like, it's a perfect movie. It's not a great movie. It's perfect. But I love when you've seen a movie so many times that you can find new things to love about it, and in turn find new things to critique, and not in a way of like, I would do this better or this is bad. But last night when I was watching it, I was like, I don't know that I need so much detail about why Billy Costigan, DiCaprio's character, is such a good fit for this. Oh, we see he has no relatives. We see that he's tough. We see he's smart, and that is all explained to us in this really laborious Bostonian Marky Mark monologue. And and I feel like the reason they're doing that is so interesting is because of the Bourne movies, where it's like audiences were really starting to reject James Bond of the time and wanting to know, yeah, but like, what are the logistics involved with today's tech? This movie is so smart with setting it up in a way that you don't go, that would never happen, right? And it's a movie, you have to be able to do that, but like, it really doesn't. But I was feeling like it was a little laborious last night. Like, oh man, okay, God, I get it. Like he's off the map. He doesn't exist. But then, like, there's several moments, like there's just one moment I could think of where it's after Matt Damon, or maybe it's during, when Matt Damon's on his date with Vera Farmiga's character, Madeline. And he's just so charming. He's got like just all, I mean, Matt Damon is just like, I don't even know if he's acting, they're just rolling. And it cross cuts always between he and Leo, which is like you were saying, Remy, that duality is always there, subliminal reminding you. Even if you don't watch movies like this, it's like your brain just picks up on it. And Leo's getting his hand wrapped. And Leo, I don't know if Leo's ever been more handsome in a film, right? And he looks casual, but he's a really, really good looking guy. And he's getting his hand wrapped. And the nurse is like pretty. And he looks up at her and she's paying no attention to him. She's just doing her job. Even though it's this young guy with a broken hand, presumably kicks somebody's ass, there's no attention given to him. And I was like, I love that. I never would have noticed that were I not kind of like, okay, I get it, Marky Mark. You're excited you could say the N-word. Cool. Like if I didn't have the time to sort of be done with that whole section, I don't know that I ever would have noticed that. And who knows if the way I'm interpreting that moment is correct.
No,
but I just love it.
So that is the scene that I picked up on was when Matt Damon goes in front of Queenan and Marky Mark, and they're saying, "Oh, you're going to be great," and all this stuff. And he walks out, and Leo's sitting right there, with his head down. And as he walks out, the chick, the secretary lady, is sitting there, and she like
Yep.
gives
Yep.
him all the breasts, and she's like smiling at him. He's like, "Thanks, doll." And he walks, and then Leo stands up, and she's not even looking at him. She's just
Yep.
looking down. And that's another just perfect showing of these guys' lives, and kind of one is just headed for just pain and misery. And I do agree that there is a bit of the only kind of background I didn't care for, like when they're like, "Oh, you should be an astronaut. You have a 1600 SAT and all that stuff." And I'm just like, I don't like getting told he's so smart. Like we can see he's smart by how he's navigating. But generally speaking, how they build both characters, or how Scorsese builds them, and William Monahan's screenplay is just absolutely brilliant. The cast of this movie is not, and this is goes to the credit of Martin Scorsese. Not just does he have great casts and great actors in his movies, but he gets the best out of them. And that's some of these actors' best movie is this movie. I mean, far and away, Marky Mark's best performance is this movie. Alec Baldwin is incredible in every scene he's in.
And
He's
not in that many scenes. He's just great in every scene he's in.
Yeah. This is Jack Nicholson's, I would say, final incredible performance. That's balanced of him being Jack Nicholson as a gangster, but also having moments that are lavish and over the top. A lot of that apparently was his input, like when he's doing the scene with the hookers and the cocaine. And him, I'm guessing the scene of him singing. I'm like, that just has to be Jack. That they're just like, all right, just keep filming. Because I was just like, how do you write that kind of thing in there? But yeah, let's talk about the rest of the cast. The scene stealer that is Marky Mark. Remy, he's your favorite actor. Probably you would put him up there with De Niro and talk to me about your love of Marky Mark and his opportunity to shine in this movie.
Oh man, Mark Wahlberg, truly the sexiest man in Hollywood of all time, because all natural, baby. He is the only dude that jacked consistently his whole career with no steroids. And you can tell it's not steroids because he started out as like a thin kid, and gradually over from Boogie Nights all the way until now, he has just gotten in shape and maintained, been in great shape his whole life. And they don't even show his incredible physique in this movie, which really is a miss. We should have, maybe in that last scene, he could have been wearing like a tank top or something. I don't know. But point is, Mark Wahlberg is the absolute scene stealer in every scene he's in, including Alec Baldwin. Even in the scenes when he's there, he is the man with the lines. Every single line this man has is gold. I love Mark Wahlberg, a great actor that has just remissed himself to choosing family-friendly, easy roles now. Unfortunate, but you see the talent that he has, and Scorsese clearly is just Scorsese. And who directed The Fighter?
Oh, damn. Can't pull it
It's
off the top of my head.
Three Kings and Silver Linings Playbook.
I'm blanking as well. I was hoping you guys would pull that out for me. But those directors are the guys that have pulled the best out of Mark Wahlberg. This movie, Three Kings, and The Fighter are his three best performances.
David O. Russell.
Thank you. So I really do think he has to have a great director to pull the best out of him, and this movie is the best example. Easily could have gotten, if it wasn't for Matt and Leo doing what they did, he definitely could have won Best Supporting Actor for this movie.
But he was nominated, wasn't he?
He was nominated. So he was nominated, but the problem was that he got nominated, and then they didn't know how to push Leo in the award ceremony, because a lot of times a studio has to choose.
Blood Diamond, he was nominated.
Right, so they went with Blood Diamond over his, and he didn't campaign at all for his performance, and they ended up going with Marky Mark, so he got nominated but did not win.
Right.
But to circle back to my to earlier point of directors getting the best out, I think what's interesting is 2 years later, I believe, was The Happening, and you kind of see, like, when you don't have that, just like with sports and a great coach, if you don't have that guiding force, you can get a movie like that. Or Zach, I think we saw Edge of Darkness with in 2010 with
Mel
Mel
Gibson.
Gibson, which was written by the same writer from this movie, but
Yeah.
that's a movie
Ray
where
Winstone.
Ray Winstone's in it, and you cannot understand anything Ray Winstone says in that movie, and you're just like, what is going on with this? But in this movie, he's so good, and he's very intimidating as Mr. French. But Jason, you also love Marky Mark. I want to let you.
Yeah. Can we just talk about Mark Wahlberg this whole time? I mean, Mark Wahlberg was fucking awesome in this, and it's from the first scene. And I remember the first time watching this movie with Martin Sheen sitting at the desk and Mark Wahlberg kind of sitting behind him, of this like dog on a chain kind of feel, where he is like holding back Mark Wahlberg, but letting him do what he does because it gets results. You know, it's like what they're trying to do is knock Leo down, you know, so they can bring him back up as this undercover agent, you know, and to make sure that you're not a cop. You know, it's like that scene to me is so impactful, and it's so good on Mark Wahlberg and the director and writers and the actors in the scene, because it sets the tone for everything of like who these characters are, where they fall in a hierarchy as far as respect for each other and emotions and things. But it's so good, Mark Wahlberg, how he just talks so much good shit, you know. It has, every line that comes out of his mouth is just gold. And yes, I want more Mark Wahlberg in this movie if I could, just to constantly get to watch him. But and then all the way up until the very final scene, that's actually him getting to pull the trigger at the very end. It's like those the two, like very beginning one setting it with Leo and Matt, and then the very end him being the one, and not getting to see him a whole lot throughout the movie though, because he quits and then you don't see him. And I think that was such a great part of the movie too, is it's almost wants you to forget about this character who's in there. And I thought about that more last night and this morning than anything. It's like, what was Mark Wahlberg doing during that time? Like, what kind of research was he doing? Was he like in some car following people, taking pictures? Because he knows, you know, at that point that Matt Damon was, you know, the undercover for the bad guys. But it's like, when did he find that out and stuff? So it's like, I almost want this, like another movie of the behind the scenes of what Mark Wahlberg was doing during that time, like a 30-minute short or something like that. But yeah, you guys hit it on the head as far as how a director brings out the best in some of these actors. But I also think it's the other actors around you in the scene also bring it out. Because I think of like The Usual Suspects, because I love reading behind the scenes stuff on The Usual Suspects cast, where they were always pushing each other. And I want to say Benicio del Toro, saying that right?
Mm-hmm.
Benicio. I think he's
farting. Great in that movie.
He's farting the entire time they're doing that classic shot of them all standing at the mug shots, and everyone else can't keep their cool, you know, and he just keeps ripping farts and stuff like that. So it's like, how many times was stuff like that being done within the Scorsese thing, or in that bullpen room or something like that, and Mark Wahlberg's fucking with Alec Baldwin or something like that. But it's I think it's the cast brings out the best in each other in that movie.
I will say just real quick, one thing is, the comb over is not, even as great as Mark Wahlberg is, the comb over is not the look for him.
Yeah.
I don't know why they went with that.
It's not a comb over, it's a side part.
Yeah,
it's
and it's bald. No gel.
Yeah, of course, a side part, but it's like the only time he's ever had that hairstyle in any movie, and it's just kind of funny.
Well, it feels like it was a little 90s as far as some of the looks of the people in there. Like even that kind of Mark Wahlberg with the suspenders and how this shirt was and the hair. It's like, is this 2006 or the 90s, you know? Or...
I think the only other thing I just want to say on that was there is so much coworker violence in this movie where it's just constantly some coworker punching another coworker. You have Alec Baldwin punching the dude senseless if you're fucking up the cameras. You have Mark Wahlberg he gets in a fight with
Matt
Leo
Damon
and Matt Damon.
Yeah.
At separate occasions.
He doesn't get into a fight with Leo. He just slaps his coffee cup away, and it's all in the and then
Leo punches him though.
Yeah, I think he gets a punch.
He does.
Yeah.
But it's still in the vein of like this is part of the act to keep you on your toes, whereas he genuinely feels like violence towards Matt Damon. But I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, that was my only real point. That was just a funny answer.
I love when Leo finally does stand up for himself in that scene, slapping the coffee cup.
He says, "Fuck you, motherfucker! Get in the car, both of you.
Okay, someone's gonna be watching." Yeah. God, Martin Sheen. Good Lord. That's the scene right there. That's when it's like the scene really like, or the movie comes to like a gut wrenching kind of halt, is when the Martin Sheen's body just
Yeah.
latched.
Well, let's not. You're getting too far ahead of us, Jason.
Okay.
But yeah, so Zach, your thoughts on Marky Mark, but then also into the next character that I was going to bring up, which is Alec Baldwin.
Oh, sure. I think Mark Wahlberg's fine in this movie. I mean, I do think that like when you first see it, let's see, it's 2006, so he had put together like a good career at this point. He was an actor. I think he had definitely moved past Marky Mark. And interesting trivia too. Have you guys ever seen the Basketball Diaries?
Yes, great movie.
So yeah, that's all right. So but it's interesting that he and Leo reunite. And yeah, I mean, I think that it's like in Boogie Nights, in The Fighter, like there's some roles. I would say this role stands out because he's getting to embrace his inner Bostonian, and he is the bad cop to Martin Sheen's good cop, and that's fine. He doesn't display a lot of range in this role. Like, I mean, I think he's better in like Lone Survivor or like a bunch of other movies than he is in this. His performance is good for what it needs to do, and he can be restrained like in that last scene, and it's impressive what he does, but it is sort of one note. It's just like, and if I didn't have the subtitles on, like it's that, and that was kind of not my complaint because it totally sets the tone of like, this is Boston and this is like, SIU or whatever, and it's not the business world where you have to really follow some decorum and vernacular. It's like there's a certain latitude that they get to play within, in terms of what he says and all that, even though they're all police officers in a sense. But there is one shot too, Remy, just to kind of wet your beak on the muscles. When he is on the phone, when Queenan's not here and Leo's calling him, it does this nice shot where it pans up, starting at his forearm, and you can see that guy must do some really intense forearm rolls. Just that one shot because his sleeve is kind of like mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah. I think Marky Mark is fine. It's an impressive performance. And then you wanted I don't know, is that enough on
Mark Wahlberg? Yeah, and Alec Baldwin.
I think Alec Baldwin is also fine. I think it's an amazing ensemble, like you said. Neither one of those actors would be like the ones that I have a ton to say on. I just think they both do a really good job, and it's amazing that Mark Wahlberg and Alec Baldwin in 2006 are part of an ensemble in which they probably the sum total of their screen time is maybe 6 to 8 minutes. So and they're always part of the ensemble except for Mark Wahlberg, but I don't want to skip ahead. So yeah, I really, really enjoy both of them a lot.
The Alec Baldwin is such an incredible actor. The writing and the lines that everyone has is so great, but every time Alec Baldwin speaks, there's some kind of nuance or pause, or like time he'll chuckle in between a word, and it makes it funnier, and then other people laugh, and it escalates. Kind of everything that he says is done, and he's the cop in charge of these sting operations. But I'm just really blown away by the maximization of his screen time. Yes, I love Alec Baldwin a lot in this movie. Jason, go ahead on your thoughts on Alec Baldwin.
Glenn Ross. What's that movie? That's Glenn. When did that come out? What was
1988? Oh,
I think it was 90, early 90s.
Definitely before this movie. And I got that feeling, when he's doing his speeches, how he controls the room and how, that Glenn
like
Ross.
The always be closing speech?
Yes. The always be closing speech. Yes. Like I get that like feelings like they almost wanted that again because they keep the Alec Baldwin's only in rooms, the whole time. There's no like outdoor shots, which actually is not a whole
except when they're golfing.
Oh yes. I wrote that down as one of my favorite scenes is when he's hitting the golf balls and he's talking. But I feel like they were almost trying to like embody that Glenn Ross kind of attitude from Alec Baldwin, where he's like, all right, we're going to give you opportunities to have these like really awesome speeches, to like just motivate the audience and the crowd and whatnot. But one thing with Alec though is you feel like so many of these actors did have some improvisation, in in some of the lines and some of the scenes that Scorsese probably let him do. I don't think Alec kind of goes into that category. Like he's very like by his lines and kind of does those, and how he delivers them is more of it. But I don't feel like he's quite as off the cuff as some of the other characters within it, which I like the Jack Nicholson things. You can really tell that he was like throwing the cocaine down and on the bed.
Well, Alec Baldwin is so good is such a good choice to move the plot along, which is what he does. Everybody moves the plot along at some point in the first third of the film, right? Whether it's cross-cutting between flashbacks, and Alec Baldwin's great, like, you know, and it's so funny, like in the hand of any other director with a worse screenplay, like you notice when it's like an expository monologue. And, you know, Alec Baldwin's presentation to their FBI counterpart and then to the whole group, but he doesn't have access to their undercover informants. It's so funny when he does, you know, this is the muscle, this is, you know, and of course the rock star, you know, and it shows Jack Nicholson's character, Frank Costello, aka Whitey Bulger. And I just want to say too, I love, because it looks like they used Jack Napier's mugshot from 1989 Batman. Like it is the exact same photo, even the one strand of hair that's out of place.
You're right. You're right.
I mean, I'm sure it's accidental or not. And fun trivia on that: Alec Baldwin was cast to play Batman in 1989. So there you go.
Would have been a better choice. Hot take.
No, Keaton.
That's a tepid take.
You Keaton truthers got to stop. I love Michael Keaton, but not the greatest Batman. Alec Baldwin would have been better.
Yeah.
I just think, yeah, like you were saying, Jason, like he's always in a room, and yeah, I just wanted to point out that I think he's great for that moment of what they're doing. I feel like Scorsese's even doing a little bit of tongue in cheek that it's mass processors, and you could say short for Massachusetts, but it is just generic company name. It doesn't matter what the thing is, and even the thing is even very modern. They're selling it to the Chinese, right? It's not to some Italian rival gang. Right, it's to modern day organized crime, and I'm not saying all organized crime is Chinese. I'm just saying that it's a new era of Scorsese playing in modernity, but it doesn't matter. The thing doesn't even really matter, and that's like how tight it is. But yes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take us in a different area there.
Is the plot of it, what they're stealing and the selling is nowhere really in the movie as much. You know, that's not the focus of what they're actually trying to steal and sell and what they're making money off of. But I thought that was very well done.
Yeah, Scorsese. He described this movie as the only movie to that point that he had done that had a plot. And even within that, Jack Nicholson's character really doesn't have an end game. He's just trying to live his best gangster life. And the mass processor that gets added, storyline that gets added in, really is just kind of the self-contained one. And there's connections of whether or not he's connected to the FBI, and you know, there's the line of like, I never gave up anyone that didn't, you know, wasn't going down anyway, and it's most likely he gives up the Chinese. And so it isn't interesting that you always have Jack Nicholson just trying to, you know, do cocaine, have fun, and meanwhile it's everyone else that's scrambling around trying to get to their end game, which is bringing him down or
not getting caught.
No, we're not getting caught. Yes.
And there's even that line too. He says, "Collie, laying low is not what I do." And I love that, because he's like, you got to lay low, Frank. And he's like, no, I'm not going to. And he knows that the way he goes down, it's going to be some version of that. And even the way he goes down is pretty darn easy when you think about all the pain and suffering he inflicts just in the course of the 2.5 hour movie. So, yeah.
Yeah. Final thoughts on either Alec Baldwin or Martin Sheen or Ray Winstone or the other cast that rounds it out.
Ooh, okay. Well, you guys talked so much about or really enjoy Alec Baldwin and Mark Wahlberg's performance. I really, really do like Martin Sheen a lot in this movie, and I think he serves such a necessary function, as every character in this movie does, and some feel more written than others. And what I mean by that is Martin Sheen is definitely like the inverse parallel to Jack Nicholson. He's this father figure to DiCaprio's character, William Costigan, and he does meet a pretty pathetic and undignified end. And, you know, I don't want to, that's sort of like fits into a larger theme, but I really like him for being part of an ensemble. And I think he gets some really great moments. And yeah, I think he's somebody that's just a little bit easier to kind of fade into the background of this cast that just pops so much. Every character pops, and there is no moment with Martin Sheen's character where you go, oh my God, I forgot about that character. He doesn't come back. He was never corrupt. He is just kind of there as this stand-in father figure in the same way that Nicholson's character is for both Billy and Colin. But I just, I think he does a really, really nice job.
Yeah, I cut you off earlier, Jason. I'll let you go ahead on your Martin Sheen take.
Yeah, Martin Sheen is great, but is he replaceable as that figure? I think it's more of the figure, like you said, like this fatherly figure to Leo, and giving us much more of the inside knowledge of the undercover work. But it's just so impactful, that scene when, of course, how he dies and everything, but then you're like, holy shit, no one knows that Leo is undercover now. Because I think Mark Wahlberg's character has quit already at that point, so he was the only one who knew. So I think it was just so impactful too on that point. It's now Leo's all by himself. No one knows that he's there. And then, of course, when Matt Damon deletes his file at the end, it's even more heart wrenching. But yeah, Martin Sheen, I think it's what I like him most about that movie is just that scene with Mark Wahlberg in the very beginning, where, like I said, like a dog on a chain, where they were just such a great position to each other. So another one where it's just that I think so many of these actors played so well off of whoever was the counterpart in that scene. But Mark Wahlberg for the win, though, even though Leo and Matt are the focus. Man, more Mark. But no, we need to stop calling him Marky Mark. This is a thing of the past. He has graduated past the Marky Mark title. I don't want to.
That's Mr. Wahlberg to you.
Yeah. No, we should call him as he prefers to be referred to as the lead in Daddy's Home 1 and 2.
The fact that we haven't mentioned the other guys, though, in the same breath as Mark Wahlberg, I think that the other guy is probably one of my top ones for Mark, which once again, feeding off Will Ferrell so well. But yeah, what a great cast. But I'm ready to talk about some of the other people, though.
Rembo, the other cast members, we'll get to Vera in just 1 second, but the other cast members.
A very large Anthony Anderson.
Yeah.
He is sucked into that uniform the whole time.
He's trying. He's running at boot camp. He's working.
Yeah, I think he actually looks like, I think this was like his first trim, Anthony Anderson, honestly. Not as much as now, but he was a lot larger in previous films.
It's just one of those things where his head just stays large, so it makes his smaller body he looks better as a larger man.
I agree. Just like Today Show guy, where I'm like, please stop being healthy.
Today Show?
Al Michaels, I think.
Al Michaels? No. Al Michaels has always looked like a stallion.
Al's the first name.
Al something. Anyway, sorry, Remy, go ahead.
Al Roker, yes.
Anyway, yes, I think I really enjoy the whole cast for the most part. Mr. French, I wish there was more of more Fitzy. They mention early on that Fitzy is a psycho when they're some psychopath from whatever.
Lives with his mother.
Yes, lives with his mother. And when he's on screen, he's good and he's kind of funny, but you don't necessarily get any specific unhinged moments from him. So I wish there was more Fitzy in this movie. That's probably the one side character I wish I got more of.
I called you.
I call you. He's so he looks so dumb in that scene where he's just call your mother, and he's you can just see the two brain cells trying to connect if it's a good idea or not.
Someone get Fitzy some water, because he is desperately needing to clear his throat that entire scene.
Yeah. But yeah, as far as the rest of the cast goes, Mrs. Farmiga. I don't know if she was married at this time, but good. I have actually. It's very interesting. I don't know if the screenplay wrote this so intentionally, but the classic trope of a psychiatrist being crazy themselves, she's not necessarily crazy, but she is attracted to psychos. Matt Damon and Leo are both psychos in their own right. And so it is kind of odd that I'm like, oh, they wrote the psychiatrist to be really taken with two different kinds of psychopaths.
Well, she even says that. She says, like, I'm attracted to your vulnerability or something like that at some point.
She's like, oh my God, your vulnerability is making me so wet right now. I mean, that's basically what she says.
Yeah, well, there's the the line that Matt Damon has is that Freud said that you can't psychoanalyze the Irish, and so maybe that it's not that she's attracted to psychos, is that she like they're invisible to her because she has no defenses against the Irish.
She has. They have the Magneto helmet of psychiatry. They're just being Irish. They're just impervious.
But the interesting thing about Vera Farmiga's character is that she's great. She's great she's the only part of the ensemble cast that really the only female character of the ensemble cast that gets a chance to shine, and she's really good in every scene she's in. But she has a chronic issue of wandering eyes, and from the moment that Matt Damon flirts with her, she just is giving him the fuck me eyes. And then when she's talking and in a session with Leonardo DiCaprio, she's giving him the eyes. And I have a theory about the whole triangle of these three characters. It's my one, but that is my one complaint. Kind of is just the very convenience that she happens to be seeing Leonardo DiCaprio and also dating Matt Damon. It's the only thing that I feel like is very convenient, very contrived, but how they handle the execution, I feel like is very well.
Whose baby is it?
Oh, it's definitely Leo's.
It's Leo. Yeah. It's DiCaprio's because they cover. Well, can I say something on Vera Farmiga?
You're probably going to say what
I think Vera Farmiga's good in this movie. I think she is a terrific actor. I think she's great. She's great in the Conjuring movies. I've seen her in other stuff. She's really good. She's not bad in this movie. Her Boston accent is not good. And I think that there
is going to be the wandering accent to it.
Yeah. So like, let's talk about this real quick. So I feel like Scorsese is oft critiqued for underwriting female characters, even though he doesn't necessarily write his movies. But like, Lorraine Bracco's character in Goodfellas. I'm not saying I hold these, but they're very common critiques. And even Sharon Stone, who I think won an Oscar for Casino, that females are often sort of portrayed as one thing in his movies, and I think that's an unfair criticism. I think he knows his limitation as a prominent male director, and he kind of knows where to put his focus. In this movie, I do think that's kind of a worthwhile criticism. I'm not saying it's sexist or whatever, but I think she's underwritten. She's only there to drive the plot. It's kind of an Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark thing, where it's if you take her character out of it, we already know Matt Damon's character is impotent. We don't need that reinforced again, that she can get pregnant by Leo. And I don't know. I just, and her accent is whatever. I mean, she's not the only person who does a shoddy Bostonian accent. I'm not an expert on it at all. And I know she did a bunch of research on her character because a clinical psychologist or therapist or whatever, I forget her title is, the instances of them falling for a patient at that level is known about as like unheard of. And I'm not saying stuff doesn't happen, but it's very unlikely. And they had like a additional researcher on set, to help her out. And so she like was really in love with that idea. Like, oh my God, well, I know it has to have happened that somebody who their living is to help broken people fall for a broken person. How can I really get into the character? So she did like a bunch of research. But yeah, I just think she's kind of underwritten, and I do think she suffers from just a critique that is lobbed at a lot of Scorsese's characters. And the one thing I just want to point out, I don't know if you guys have ever caught this, but after her first, or I think it was her first session with William Costigan, it's the worst moment of ADR I've ever seen in a big budget film like this. They have their meeting, and he goes, 2 pills? Why don't you give me a bottle of scotch and a handgun to blow my fucking head off? And he throws that at her, and she goes like this. She goes, and she says so clearly, fuck. And it's just silent. And I'm like, who, what? We had to cut one F word for this movie? It's so there. She goes like that much, and there's nothing there. But anyways, I think she's fine.
I think that that touch is basically because she's a psychologist, so she's not supposed to lose her cool. And I think
Right.
took that out so that she's not screaming the way that every other male actor in this movie is screaming. But I do like the femininity that she adds to this movie. I think is very nice, even though, yes, I do agree that her character is not necessarily the most fleshed out. But well, I have it. I want to get to my theory, but I want to let Jason go because I don't think you've had a chance to comment on Farmiga.
It's really the first like 2 scenes with her and Matt. You know, it's like the elevator scene. I think we all want to pick up a girl like that in an elevator. You know, be that calm, cool, and get the phone number within 1 or 2 minutes. You know, and especially in a room full of people, I think it's just such a cute kind of scene. You know, because you can see it on both their faces that they are very enamored with each other.
Chemistry is excellent.
Yeah, it looks very natural.
He's so charming in that scene.
Yes. Yeah. It's like we all want to be able to we'll talk to my wife that way, to have that, kind of energy chemistry. So not that we don't talk like that all the time.
Beep, beep, beep.
But it's so like fun, to see both of them like that. And then, the date scene, the next one where they're just the chemistry bouncing off of each other, very a fun conversation situation. So, and then she's very just like extra just a little bit and throughout the rest of the movie. So I feel like it was established her and Leo in that one scene you guys talking about, and then Matt at the beginning, and then not so much towards the end and middle of the movie.
They even like mainline it to you that you're not going to get any depth of this character when she tries to give you some depth by putting her own pictures and her own diplomas and credentials on the wall. Matt Damon's like, we're not hanging this in the wall. And you're like, yeah, that's we're not going to learn about this character at all. We don't care. She's just there to put Colin on the phone.
And then Leo is at her apartment, he's hanging up her pictures on the wall and stuff.
Yeah, I like that. It's a nice touch.
Everything was like the 2 sides of the same coin sort of stuff, especially how he treated her versus Matt treating her. But the impotence thing, I didn't think that was the running thing. I thought it was just like one time that he had like a problem in bed. I didn't realize he was unable to have babies with her. And
I feel like
I must have missed that.
I've been dying to talk about this so much because I have not thought about this, and either I've thought about this and just forgot about it, but I don't think so. I think watching it again this time, for however the what umpteenth time I've seen this movie, I didn't have the thought until now. I was like, I think Matt Damon's gay. I don't think he's impotent. Well, he's impotent, but I think his character is. I'm not sure if it's more written, because there are these very subtle moments throughout the movie that, show his impotence, but then there's other moments that highlight, like, I think it's just to, and I don't know if it's more Scorsese or the Monahan's screenplay, but there's moments that just, I think, add to the whole double life theme of the movie. The hanging of the pictures, I don't know if it's because of the double life, and when he has other house guests, does he not want to show his girlfriend? But there's multiple scenes. So the first time that it comes up is Matt Damon sitting there feeling dejected, and Vera Farmiga's character says, Madeline says, it's all right. It happens to a lot of guys. It's pretty common. And that either means 2 things. Either you came early or you couldn't get it up. But then there's a scene later on where they're both laying in bed, and he's like, if you want to leave, you're going to have to be the one that leaves. And that's just kind of it. Like, we don't get this big fight, this big like thing. It's just kind of, you get that scene of them saying that, and then that's kind of it. And then the Alec Baldwin scene, the great Alec Baldwin scene where he's golfing, and he says, the ring, let's ladies know that you have a little bit of money or your cock must work. And then he says in a very just, this does not feel authentic, where he says, it's working. Overtime.
Yeah, overtime.
I'm glad to hear that. But all those kind of details, I'm just like, I feel like the Matt Damon being gay in the movie makes sense based on just kind of the little details they add. But am I off base? What do you guys think?
I don't want to cut anybody off. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Rambo, you kick us off.
I was gonna say, I didn't really think of it from the point of that he's gay as much as he just doesn't really love her, and he's just a little like that there's a really good word that I would like to remember to use right now that I'm blanking on, but I think I think of this as just something that actors must have to deal with in general, is constantly living a life where you're faking feelings and emotions and relationships must make it hard to then have real ones.
Mm-hmm.
And
Or
so
be taken seriously the way you want to by people. It's like, no, this is me.
right. Yeah. And so I think of it as being borderline sociopathic. I guess I called him a psychopath earlier, maybe a sociopath. I don't know. But like I think it just takes a level of like disconnect to be able to live that type of life that he does. And so it clearly is going to carry over to his interpersonal relationships. And so I think either he just maybe doesn't have real feelings. He's not capable of these real feelings for her. And so I think I was kind of looking at it like that, but he could be gay. That's an interesting way of looking at it that I didn't do before. A couple just comments on their relationship, though. She is moving in with him in 4 months. They make that comment. 4 months. She's like, Leo asks her, how long have you been together? She's like, 4 months. And then they're moving in together, and she's like, they're already having problems. I'm like, what is keeping this girl around? Why is she still there? Like, you're having problems 4 months in and moving in together? Like, that shit made no sense to me. Made no
he
sense
checks
to me.
all the boxes.
Yeah, and they're talking about marriage too.
Yeah, and they talk about marriage. He's like, how's the marriage coming along? He's like, oh, great. It's
wow, this relationship is moving fast.
So fast. And I really didn't understand that angle to it. So it is very odd. The relationship, I don't think, is super well flushed out because she is unfortunately kind of, I mean, it is a very male centric film, and she is the only little bit of femininity that we get set next to Alec or Jack Nicholson's love pieces. But that was just as far as their relationship and Matt goes, I think it's mostly just his double life and just that being able to separate him from a normal relationship or normal life.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this for years. So I think that I think Mav called attention to like some of the indicators that could go either way. And, you could interpret any scene that could go either way, but I think it could go either way of, is he impotent or was it, premature ejaculation or something like that? I think it is, as the movie goes on, though, there's several other scenes. And this is why I think this movie is so, I think each of us have gestured at several times, like the inverse parallel and duality that is like there's like this wonderful symmetry to each character, right? That they all, not to be like too fucking corny, but they have like this like yin yang, right? Jack Nicholson's is to Martin Sheen, Billy Costigan to Colin, right? And it's like they're never full deviations. They're both in this underworld. They're both prisoners, and I think there's a simplistic read on it. I actually wrote a paper about this, and so it's like really, really like something that if you just think and think and think and look and look and look, you can kind of spin yourself into a narrative that might not even be true. But there's the scene Mav called attention to. There's also the scene where Madeline's character tells Colin that they're having a baby. And we know as the audience that it could go either direction on whose child it is, but his reaction is surprise. And that is generally going to be the reaction when you're told like, hey, I'm pregnant or whatever, but it's not. And so, right. So, commonplace. But also his reaction is sort of more like, what the hell? Like, how did this happen? Playing into the impotence idea. I don't know if you guys are familiar with, have either of you seen Black Mass or read the book?
I've seen the movie.
So Frank Costello is based loosely on Whitey Bulger, right? And the movie I don't think touches on this, but in the book Black Mass, it talks about that Whitey Bulger was bisexual, and he did have relationships with men. And I think that there's also a read on this film that both Jack Nicholson and Matt Damon's character are closeted homosexual, because the way they talk about sex is in these really aggressive ways that rarely talks about vaginal penetration. I'll just say it's always about different types of sex. And that's interesting, right? You could kind of look at that and be like, okay, well, they're just harsh people. No, there's something to it. right? There's I'm not going to repeat the line, but when he talks about if you don't get your shit in order, this is how we're going to assault your girlfriend. And it's weird. You're just kind of like, okay. So it could go either way. You're like, is he just trying to say this is the worst form of assault, or is this a different thing? There's the scene I'm mad. I don't know how chronologically you want to go, but when he kills Frank, he says all that murdering and all that fucking and no sons. And you're like, huh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the read is ever going to be as simple as Matt Damon's character is gay, and so is Frank Costello. I do think they're gesturing at what up until very recently people. It's not that they don't want to talk about it, but it is surprising that James Whitey Bulger had relationships with men, and it's proven, it's true. And I don't know. I don't think it goes deeper than that. I think he was probably just bisexual in a time where that was not looked upon favorably, and I'm sure it's not in the criminal world today, even now. I think what you said, Remy, too, is really spot on, though, where it's like I think this movie is about prison. It's about the prison of duality and of lying. And I think, like people throw around like toxic masculinity about, or in conversation, and about Fight Club and about Goodfellas. And I'm sure about this movie, too. And I think I think this movie stands above those because I think all of those movies are much more complicated than idealizing toxic masculinity or whatever. And that's a really simplistic read on it. But this one, I think, is they are all prisoners of that. Whether Jack Nicholson or Matt Damon's character are gay and cannot be, it doesn't really matter. They can just never be who they are, right? They can't live up to this machismo in the bedroom, let alone like be who they are. Leonardo DiCaprio is like this charismatic, handsome, broken, awesome guy. He has no friends. He even says to Madeline in the end, there's no one else. I don't know anybody else. And you're like, that doesn't fit in with my perception of what a loner should be. Right. And like, yeah, I just think it's so not about idealizing toxic or masculinity. It's about showing what a prisoner you can become of that, where it's like you have to be one thing, and in being that thing, you just become the most disgusting version of yourself and not having any nuance. And I think that I think Scorsese writes the type of character like DiCaprio and Matt Damon. He didn't write them, but he gives you that version so well throughout his entire career, in Taxi Driver, in King of Comedy, in After Hours, in all of his movies, really, in even in Goodfellas and Casino, where you're just like, I don't know, like they're always prisoners of their lifestyle. And I think he writes the Marky Mark so well because he hates those kind of people, right? You even have that in Taxi Driver. He plays it. Anyways, so that's kind of my overarching theory of the movie, is that I do think there's a lot of clues that they are gay or not in touch with their sexuality. But I think it's more just like everybody cannot be their true self. What do you guys think?
Wow. Yeah, that's really well said.
Oh, last thing. DiCaprio says when he's on the phone with him and he's found him out, and I'm not going to say it, but he says the F word for gay. He says, "You knew I'd find this out, you two-faced." Why is that line there?
Well,
right?
Again, okay, so that was one of my other notices or things I noticed of that line. But then what are the first lines that the Matt Damon, the adult character, has? His first line is "Sir, yes, sir," when he's in the rain. And the next line he has is everything he says about firemen. And he has
those
three
fucking
lines.
firefighters, a bunch of...
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, everything is aggressive male sexuality with his character. I don't know. Sorry, Matt, please continue.
Yeah. So that was the other thing, is that that first introduction of his adult character has that aspect of it. And so, yeah, anyway, it just kind of plays out. But again, to your point, it does play into the whole double life.
Extremely unbelievable part on Matt Damon is, or I guess in the movie, the cell phones and the texting, and like how good he is at texting in his pocket without being able to see what he's doing.
I was able to do that,
baby.
I do actually. I will disagree on that point. It's because all the buttons are so specific. It'd be way easier to do that on a flip phone than your regular phone. There is no chance in hell you would be able to take a smartphone, put it in your pocket, and with one hand text somebody any sort of readable message, no chance. No
I
chance
was
at all.
able to do what he does, so I know from firsthand experience.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, but like if you for specific buttons and phone, you just be like, oh yeah, okay, first button, I'm gonna hit this, I'm gonna hit that, I'm gonna hit this.
Yep.
Yeah, you can do it for sure.
I must have missed it. So what is the time period this movie is set in? I thought it was
modern
2000.
day. I think it's just
Modern day.
modern day.
So
2006.
the amount of pagers that they're using in flip phones are not that time period, though. I feel
Yeah,
like
no, they are.
No.
Yeah,
The
they're all
flip phones
flip
are
phones.
all like top of the line flip phones
Yeah.
at that point.
And it was shot in the end of 2004.
Yeah, but gosh, that flip phones that we were using those at that point. I feel
Yeah,
like we
because we didn't get the iPhone until 2006, and that was
Seven.
only on AT&T at the time. So you had Blackberries that came like right after this movie we went from those Palm Treos and whatnot, and then that kind of went into Blackberries for that period, and then the iPhone took over,
Okay.
obviously.
Okay, so
Wait,
right on the
yeah.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the technology for a second, because I think this is something that makes this movie and a few others in this time period really, really great. So like, and this is, I don't know if I said this already, but I think it's really interesting that you have the Bourne movies circling back on themselves in a number of ways. So like Bourne reset James Bond, right? They're like, we can't do Pierce Brosnan snow surfing. It just, audiences aren't buying it. And then Daniel Craig, and there's a lot of like sound design and phone elements and technology. It's still a movie, but the Bourne movies, especially the first one, computers don't make noises to indicate that they're completing the operation successful, just like in real life. Movies, please take note. We don't need beeps to indicate something happened successfully.
Boop, boop, beep,
So
boop, beep,
the
beep.
Bourne movies do not do that. When they're pulling footage in Europe, it's like it's actually blurry and they're trying to figure it out. And then, so like I say, like it's very obvious, and Mission Impossible started to draw upon them. Well, now you have the star of that franchise playing a really big dirtbag. And and I'm not trying to be like pedantic, Jason, but I do love the way it like shows him taking out the SIM card of his phone and putting it into the other one. And they're very quick, but it's like all in service of this person is a liar, and they are at the highest level of being a police officer. They're a state police, right? And we got to show you like what kind of like steps you'd have to take to do that, because you get caught if you're not careful. And like I don't know, I just think it's really, really cool. Like there's a lot of attention to detail taken in the logistics of arranging this kind of stuff. Texting in his pocket. That scene is not 3 seconds long. It shows him thinking about it in his pocket. He's focusing, right? And then it shows like the text received, and they all have to turn off their phones, right? Blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of care taken to show you in that time. And then nowadays it's like, because tech moves so fast, I don't know if it's that or if people just take less care, but I feel like this was a very nice era of film where it was like they were trying to portray it as it was and not as it will be. Or I don't know. I really, really enjoy that element of it. And I think it's interesting to see the star of the franchise that I think really crystallized that in this. I mean, think about what he'd be. He's been in the Ocean's movies. He'd been Jason Bourne, been Good Will Hunting, all very likable or withdrawn, quiet characters that are borderline nerdy. And then he's just, despicable in this. It's crazy.
Just on that comment, I do think it's a perfect it's a perfect time period where the technology is just advanced and just limited enough for the plot, where it's not like it would be so hard with modern day tech to have that same scenario. Cell phone tracking would be so much easier. You can pinpoint everybody's location immediately. Like he's like Alec Baldwin's just hyped because Patriot Act. I love it. Like he's hyped because they can like just track a general location of a cell phone, which makes sense for the time period. Whereas now it'd be like basically impossible to do those same sorts of things. It would take a lot more attention to detail. So I think all the tech is just so perfect for the time period, and they use it so well that it ages great. Where it doesn't look back and is just like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Or they have some sort of advanced tech that doesn't make any sense for the time. It all perfectly.
They're all in each other's earpiece. What's that?
Yeah.
How is it we're never talking over each other ever once? Okay, good.
Right. Even with the wire, he's just got a basic wire strapped to his body. And when he pulls the hand out, and Leo's face during that scene, he's just like, he's trying not to freak out, but it's just in his mind. Anyway, so the tech of this movie is done perfectly, truly perfectly. I that's something every time I watch it, I'm just like, yeah, God, they nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess I was confused of when the time period was. I thought they were almost dating it too far back from what it was, but I guess it is relevant. Yeah, and I guess
Well, they got the Wolverine comic to clue you in the very beginning. I'm like, all right, so it's 1984.
That's
okay,
an early 90s, late 80s Wolverine comic right there.
I paused it on that scene to see what cover it was. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I think I might have that one back there. Maverick, I can't believe you haven't brought up music though. I thought that was something we would have talked
That
about.
was literally where I was going, Jason. You know me all too well.
Nice.
So yeah, real quick on the whole technology thing. That is what I really appreciate, and to play into the music is that what really bothers me. And Scorsese gets a pass because he literally godfathered this of using music and using music of the time to bring you back to certain eras. And he still has like a lot of old tracks in this movie, obviously. And you have Roger Waters' version of Comfortably Numb, and things like that. But Dropkick Murphys, Shipping Up to Boston, being one of the themes of this movie constantly throughout. And it's not just some old 60s song that he's picked, or Give Me Shelter to play a bunch of times. It's a modern song, which is one of my complaints about the movies today, is that they're always just going back and being like, there's a pop song from the 80s, there's a pop song from the 70s, and they abandon any, to use Zach's word, modernity for these movies. And I really like how that, with the cell phones, with perhaps the hair, perhaps not the hair, does make it feel like this movie takes place in modern day, and it's not just trying to be like, oh, you know this song, you know that song, or you know this. But yes, Zach, did you have a real quick thought before I continue?
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think the music is like super symbolic of like how this movie is Scorsese playing the hits to an extent, right? Like, and that's why I don't think we'll have time to talk about it, but I think even though this is the Scorsese film I've seen the most, I love it so much. I've just been like praising it endlessly. That's why it's like high mid tier for me, is just because, and sorry, I know this probably be at the end, but I just feel like it's him playing the hits to an extent in the best way though, right? Because Gimme Shelter is in his best films and stuff. And I don't want to deviate, but I just love that it's like I was saying earlier, how it's like he's doing business with the Chinese mafia essentially. And Jack Nicholson's character, Frank, is a relic of a bygone era, but still grasping, right? And I feel like that this movie is the same. Even though Scorsese's continuing to make phenomenal films, it's like consciously showing you this is the end of an era of crime, and perhaps the end of an era of this style of movie. And you're seeing characters struggle with it. And I think that does play into the technology and the song choices he makes and stuff. Anyway, please go.
The Dropkick Murphys, obviously, every time it comes on, it's loud. It just takes over the scene. When The Departed, again, 18 minutes in, The Departed shows up, the title screen, and that music is kicked. Like, you're fully in. You are in. And at that point, we've already gotten introduced to Matt Damon and Leo, and we kind of have the table is set. But
there's not even care taken. It'll fade in and out. I love it too. It's not even like quiet. It goes way down here and then it goes way back out.
Yeah. And it'll just dead cut.
Yeah.
And then dead pick right back up.
You know, and that's what almost I wanted to bring up more about the music. It wasn't so much like what tracks he chose. It's like how he uses music. And you can just tell it's like, especially after, James Gunn, and then bring up another movie of like how using music, you can just tell Scorsese is just good at what he does, as far as like where a track starts, where it finishes. And I cannot remember the scene, but music's building, the tension, the scene's happening, and he flips open the cell phone and the music just cuts. It goes silent. Like, and there's so many
Ship
scenes.
It Up to Boston again.
That was the scene?
Yeah, well, it's in the beginning, and it's also in that too, because it's right as shit's really, really going really, really haywire. So it's the most aggressive song is when it has the most aggressive cut. Sorry.
Yeah, like that. And it's like stuff like that I'm like, oh yeah, you're so good at your craft, and then of course the music choice, but also your whole, use a song for 15 seconds that you should be murdered line from one of our previous podcasts, or arrested. I can't remember how you felt about how heavily.
If you play less than at least 30, I'm gonna say a minute. If you play less than a minute of a song in your movie, I hate you. You should go to jail.
I thought it was
that's the great part about great part about Scorsese is that he really lets his music go, and it really does take over his scenes. And so many of his scenes and so many of his movies, you cannot think of that scene without thinking of that song like being played throughout the whole thing. And the other point, not just the tracks that are selected in this movie, which do feel when you're watching it, it does feel like there's much less singles from famous artists than his other movies. But the thing that I love the most is the simplistic acoustic guitars that Howard Shore, I did not know Howard Shore was the composer of this movie. Every time you hear that just simple guitar strumming. Hopefully we don't get a copyright strike for that, because that's very good impression.
It's a nylon string, like, just kind of Roomba.
And it's so simple, and that's it. We don't have any super dramatic orchestral, like, nothing. It's just those very simple times when it's cutting in between Leo and Matt Damon. And I just love how much it lets the actors take over the scenes, and it's not trying to just to bury them under this big orchestral piece.
One more thing on the music too. It's really interesting how this movie, like, Jason, you're kind of like, when did it, kind of come out? And I think it's interesting because in spoilers for The Sopranos, when dies,
Hey,
what are they listening to? Oh,
No,
wait,
that's way past the spoiler hold.
wait, who's watching The Sopranos?
Remy's like season 3.
Oh,
Okay,
you're
well-
like actively watching.
They pop in the song. They pop in the CD, and he goes, "This Departed soundtrack's fucking great." And it's like, oh, that's really interesting. So like they're watching it, and then also the character who DiCaprio, the men from Providence, that he assaults in the bodega or whatever. That guy is also in the last season of The Sopranos too. Not the muscle, but the other guy who's like, see this guy right here? He don't want you to live. That guy plays a prominent character in the final season. And I just love it. That feels very intentional to me, obviously on the part of The Sopranos, to reference the movie that came out while they were shooting the final season. It's just really interesting. I think those are the only two characters that play in The Sopranos. I'm sorry, Remy, if you're still watching the show. But like I said, when he continues to live.
That's so funny.
I mean, I accept the responsibility of watching The Sopranos very late in life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I understand.
I'm surprised it hasn't been spoiled for you already. Wow. Yeah.
I'm very good at not letting things be spoiled for me.
Not as good as I am at spoiling them.
Apparently. But on the music note, yeah, I think you guys nailed most of what I was going to say anyway. But I like the random opera scenes, so random. But like, just and it's not even that he there's twice in the movie. Once when he goes to the opera, when Jack is with the sex worker and his girlfriend. He goes to the opera, does coke. It's like gets him in the mood or whatever. And then there's another scene when he's back at home and he's listening to opera again. Mm-hmm. Who the fuck listens to opera that much? That's just another, like, yeah, you clearly have to be out of your mind if you're listening to opera, going out of your way to listen to opera that much.
He's eccentric. Look at his tie in the one scene where it's like leopard print and stuff. He's he's very eccentric.
Honestly, it's almost like it is the Joker who just got bored of being the Joker and is like, I guess I'll just be a regular old man gangster now. Like and I mean, dude, the face. Again, we're just talking about music. There's
you can transition this into Jack Nicholson's character / the end of this movie.
Yeah, no, because I got a good point on that too. So that's a great transition. So go ahead. Rick.
Yeah, we have this. We cannot talk about The Departed without the rat scene. The rat face scene is so iconic. The way he transforms his face into being an actual rodent is incredible.
The frustration that's like us being the rat and how it all is built.
That scene, is so good. He's like smashing the table. He like smashes the table like it's like a berry or something.
It's a bug, and he eats the bug.
Yeah.
Is it a bug?
It's a bug.
It's a bug.
I couldn't figure out what it was. Yeah, he smashes it and then eats it. It's dude.
There's a
He's
little sound design buzz, but that scene you guys were talking about improv. That scene is all improvised from Nicholson.
Oh, I
So
had
they
to be.
sat-
Oh shit!
Well, there's
And
not a ton of improv in the movie though. They that I know, but they sat Leo down and they said, "Here's the scene," like as you do, right? And Nicholson. And Matt Damon has talked about this in interviews. He does a really good Jack Nicholson impression, but he said that he's like, Jack sat me down. He's like, I never would have gotten this far if I hadn't have been a great writer, right? And what he's saying there is like, I know how to write a scene, and so Leo knew what the tone of the scene was, but that was a real bug. They just added the buzz in post production so you could figure out what it is. And like you were saying, Remy, like he makes the face or whatever. But I love that scene because it's not a Judd Apatow improv of like, let me just say 9 dumb of like pornographic things and one of them will be funny. He's moving the scene. He's like, you learn things watching things eat. And DiCaprio is really good. He's so stressed looking, like, right? And he tries to counter back with the intimidation. It's such a good scene.
Well, DiCaprio learned something from that because Django, you know, when Django Unchained, when he smashes his hand down the table and cuts
the
glass, uses the blood and everything in the scenes.
He's like, I'm going to do that, but less good.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. Hey, what was that? That's a hot take. Don't try to switch that off on me.
What kind of unnecessary slander was that?
Apatow catches a stray. Leo catches a stray. What's going on around here? This isn't the hot take portion of the show.
Okay, sorry. Keep going. Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson, good transition to the end scene and him and Matt Damon. What I wrote down here is who shot first, Han or Greedo? So, like right there when he's in the warehouse, and they're both there, and who does shoot first? I think it is Nicholson. Okay, but he's hiding the gun underneath his jacket, right? Mm-hmm. Or is that the second shot when he's falling down and then he shoots from outside his jacket? He's like, "What motherfucker?" And
he's already shot, so he kind of like clumsily whips his gun to aim it at Colin, and he does shoot first though, and then Colin nails him.
Because I feel like this could be a scene like we have to rewatch. It's like I don't know.
You're right. It is very much meant to be a firefight that's confusing.
But I love that where he's like, Matt Damon's like, you asshole. Like he shoots back at him. Like, what were you thinking? Like, why would you shoot back at him?
I think the line is rat prick.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. He calls him a rat as the final insult because that's where he's learned about him talking to the FBI. It's like, hey, isn't that the pot calling the kettle black?
The culmination of the whole movie, once Leo comes back in and he sees the envelope, and then it is a mad dash. He bounces, and I don't believe we know what is in the envelope that he gives Vera Farmiga.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, that envelope.
He sends an envelope with the tapes to Matt Damon, but he gives Vera Farmiga, and we don't know. And there's a couple of there's in the beginning of the movie, there's Matt Damon receiving a little box with something in it from Jack Nicholson, and I don't believe we see what that is either.
Oh no, that's like Pulp Fiction golden briefcase. I thought the same thing. Like, we never got to see what the gift was, which I thought it was a gun. Like that was my because he's like, you're no more put down the pencils and books and now you're ready to be a man sort of thing. So I thought it was a gun, but it's
probably just cocaine. And Jack Nicholson's like, yeah, you're a man now. Get hooked.
I thought what DiCaprio gives Madeline's character is the money that he made from.
But he walks away before he gets it because
Matt Damon comes in. I always interpreted that. You're right. And,
he does have, unless he's been using it, but he does have the life insurance money where he said he had 30 grand.
Yeah.
No, it's not money because he's talking about if something happens to me, I need you to get this out. It was almost like that something to go to like the reporters.
Yeah, it could be like a manifesto. No, you're right. It's not money.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know that she's pregnant. So he wouldn't even need to leave her with anything. Yeah. I think you're right. I do think it's a Pulp Fiction, what's in the suitcase. There's several of those in this film that are intentional omissions that I love.
Well, you know, in interviews with Quentin, they talk about how he didn't want it to be ever what is in the case. He wanted each
Yeah.
person like, what would I want in this case, or what would
And
everyone?
now he's told us. It's like, way to ruin your own
I know,
magical
and
writing
then he did
trick.
come out like last year and said it was drugs the whole time. It's like, no, I had something different in my head. You know?
Yeah. It's like, we don't need to know, you know, because you didn't either. That's the beauty of the plot mechanics. But sorry, Matt, please continue.
Well, there's the mad dash, and then yes, he brings Matt Damon's character. Leo brings Matt Damon's character to the roof, and it is, it feels so good to watch Leo beat the shit out of Matt Damon.
Hitting him over and over again.
No, he's good at pistol whipping because he already knocked two guys' teeth out with just one in another scene. So it's like, okay, he's got his pistol whipping skills.
He breaks him, and he breaks him in the elevator, and he's like, "This is gonna be fun." And I love.
Kill me.
There's a couple of these type of shots in this movie that I really love, where it just holds, and he's like, it doesn't cut, and he's like, it just holds on him, being like, "This is gonna be fun," and then he just starts like, "Just kill me, man." And it just
starts crying.
Yeah. And then earlier, I forgot to mention the other scene that it holds on that I really love it, because it would have been so easy to give this dramatic effect that Scorsese doesn't do, which is when Leo goes with the cast and Jack smashes it, and he's trying to get him to break, and he's smashing his hand. He's like, "Are you?" And in that scene, he's like, "I wonder if it would have been someone like Keenan to put someone in my unit." But it just holds. There's not like the cut to Leo's eyes, and he's like, there's a pause, and he's not sure if because it's only an hour into the movie. So it's like, he's not going to get busted in that moment. And I love that Scorsese does that in so many of his movies, where he just holds on it, and he's not trying to add a bunch of things that he doesn't need to.
There's also the moment in the beginning with his cousin when he says, like, I want to put 10 grand out on the street. And, you know, and he's like, this is the moment where I say, I'm not a cop. And it's a wonderful thing that Scorsese does. And he's done this in a lot of movies, like you said, where it's like, you know, that's false. It's too early in the movie. It's not unconvincing, but it's like this wonderful reminder of like, what is my judge of character? Because conceivably these street toughs would have just as good, if not a better bullshit read, right? But they believe him. And I don't know. I don't really have a point beyond that. But yeah, like his cousin believes him. Okay, that guy's kind of dumb. But then obviously Frank Costello is not, right? And he, as we know, in the end, he says he trusted me more than anybody. And yeah, it's just really, really interesting, like you said, that they show you that, and it doesn't push in or hold in. You kind of just get to like live in the character of the person who's sussing him out if he's bad or not. Or
when Jack,
informant.
When Jack peels off like just a couple hundreds and throws it at Leo when he's on the pool table.
Love that part. And then he does like the whole wad because he feels bad.
Then he throws the rest of the wad at him too.
I love that so much.
I'll take away from that scene. It's just like, man, get it fixed and do something, buy something for yourself, sort of attitude.
Yeah, he really does see him as like a son. Like in the scene we were just talking about a second ago, when he's, you know, he's kind of losing it, so to speak. He's acting eccentric but paranoid and stuff. Even after that, when he pulls a gun on him, it's such a good scene. But he comes back behind him and he's messing with him and he goes, eat something. How many times has your mom or your dad said that to you? And it's like, okay, sure. You know, and yes, he did trust him. I love it. Okay. So it's like, even though Leo is Billy is this character who wants parental nurture so bad, he does, and that is reciprocated in a way from Frank. I love it. It's so cool.
Well, the other thing that Jack says that to play to that father figure is when he, and I forget the exact words, but he basically says, "Why don't you go back to school?" And Leo like laughs at it. And he's like, "Why am I going back to school?" He's like, "Maybe you need to grow up." Like he says something to that effect.
Yeah.
It's just, it is
one
like,
day you'll wake the fuck up.
Right. Yeah. And so that, and how he treats Matt Damon's character, how he raises him up. There is a very paternal image of him. And I think they throw in, you know, he's a rat for the FBI, but it is, he never sold out any of those close people to him that we're aware of as an audience.
Even that scene too, where I'm so sorry, Jason, but even that one scene too, where it shows them doing, which ends up being the catalyst to him figuring out that Matt Damon was the inside person, but it shows he and Arnold on the side, and he's smoking a cigarette and he goes, "It's not him." He says it can't be Billy. And you could see the heartbreak and relief and all that. So he still has a rat in his outfit, but I read it as he's relieved to learn it's not Billy because Billy's awesome, or he loves him for whatever reason. You know what I'm saying? So we even see that what we typically would think of as they don't give a fuck, they'll turn on their people, whatever. That is true, but you see the relief just wash over him. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure there's a different way to read that scene, but I love it. It's cool.
One thing I just wanted to bring up on the father figure thing, I know it's not quite we're at the end of the movie, but a point I had written down was the lore of Leo's father. You know, like how much like other characters talk about Leo's dad being this, not or a very straight edge person. So I guess he was a janitor or something like that. And they don't really touch on the whole thing. But then, so the scene at the hospital in the very beginning, that's his mother dying, correct?
Yeah.
And then this is Uncle Jackie or something like that. So
that's his mother's brother.
So the mother's okay. And so Uncle Jackie was like a big part of the criminal underground, correct?
His father's brother, yeah.
Yeah, so you don't know in that scene, and it's like he's talking about how you're trying to be a cop to prove something to the family. Like you don't know at that point that this guy is a gangster. And I thought that was very strange and good throughout the movie too, though, is we don't get a whole lot of the story behind it. They just kind of sprinkle in what his dad was and what his uncle was and if they were father figures to him. But then of course that great line is once she dies, we have no more connection.
Right.
It's like he's like severing ties with this guy, but you don't understand though the impact even of that. It's more like even the gangster world or like his line of work he was not going towards. So it's so interesting that he kind of does come full circle. And I think even Jack's character at one point says, if your father saw you sitting here next to me, what he would do to me. And what if Uncle Jackie, saw you sitting next to me, what he would do, and it's interesting how we don't get these flashbacks. We don't get this exposition dump of, well, when I was 6, this is what my father did and my uncle stepped into my life. It's very, very well done. And I think it's playing more to this like search for this father figures for both these characters where
well said, man. Yeah, I agree.
One of my favorite lines in the movie is when Leo's talking to his uncle Captain Eyebrows with the mysteriously missing mustache that would perfectly go over his large upper lip.
All of it's
is he says maybe you never asked yourself, am I an asshole? Or why do my kids hate me? Is my wife a money grubbing whore? Now those are questions.
And his face is rocks.
Do you need some money for the funeral?
Yeah, go ahead, Rambo.
No, I was gonna just as a random scene. Yeah, when Jack and Leo are in the actual diner.
The bodega.
No. The actual diner.
Yeah,
the actual diner. When he walks over to the priest. The priests.
Oh yeah.
He's just talking shit to them for being pedophiles, but like. I just love I just love that scene because it's just a classic like murderer, crazy dude, gangster, but he has standards. He doesn't believe in pedophilia.
He doesn't, but that's another scene where yes, like is pedophilia and all that historically rampant amongst priests? Yes. Well, however, it's another scene where he highlights a weird thing, and I just think it's way back in the conversation. He chooses to hone in on an odd aspect of even that type of fucked up sexuality. It's yet another moment where you're like, why of all the ways to describe, you know what I'm saying? But I do love that scene too. And I don't even know if those priests are ones that he has found out or if he just likes to intimidate them.
No, they look for sure when they look at each other, like they like, oh, he knows.
Yeah, but like Jason was saying, though, you don't get a backstory and everything. You just get these little moments.
Well, when he draws the little pornographic picture because his whole thing of there's several scenes where he's drawing and writing and drawing and painting things, and it's like I'm an artist. It just goes back to the I'm an artist.
I mean, the biggest question I come away with that scene is it's the nun chugging beer and then like getting up and walking away, and it's like. Did they have a relationship or like
they did?
Still,
yes,
like,
they did. Yeah. That's the indication.
yeah. It's just like there's so many questions from that scene that I feel like they did leave this another thing of the past of a lot of these characters not being so fleshed out. Us getting.
Well, remember the part when he is intimidating, or he's trying to suss out Leo's, whatever loyalty or whatever in the scene. Remember you were talking about where he's wearing the wire. And I love it. And it's just, it's so gross, but he plays it so well. The fact that he's eating some shrimp or it's some, you can't tell whatever it is while he's holding the the severed hand.
And yes,
And-
the ring, pulling the ring off.
Yes, and I
Yeah.
love the line though where he goes, "Send this to his wife," and he something. He's like, "She wasn't that sentimental as I remember," and it's just like, oh my god. Same with the nun, where it's like you don't get this backstory, you don't know if he is, you don't know the reality of it, but the indication is there. And I love what you said
Jack.
a while ago, Remy, that like it feels like if Jack Napier didn't become the Joker, that this is who it ended up. I completely agree, and like. Yeah, Nicholson said the backstory he wanted to give the character, in addition to like researching Whitey Bulger, was that he was like a sex maniac and also a sophisticated criminal, kind of past that stage in his life. Who's more just like, anyways, yeah.
Let's just keep going favorite scenes, and we'll just quote them and like, oh, I like this one. I like this one. I like that one. Yeah.
Well, so yeah, the end that I was referencing for everything from the elevator scene to the end of the movie. Rem, your takeaway of that quick succession of kill up until your boy rising to the top.
Dude, so good.
Yeah. I don't, the feeling that I had, because they do such a great job. Yeah, that scene is just like, it builds, and after Leo dies, you're just like, fuck, because you think you're going to get the good ending, and then Leo gets capped, and then Anthony Anderson gets capped, and you're just like, oh shit, okay, so like, and then you start to get the feeling.
Berrigan gets capped too.
Who?
Berrigan, the guy who actually kills.
Oh yeah, right, the other dirty cop who just he knew that Matt Damon was a dirty cop, but Matt Damon didn't know he was a dirty cop. It's a little bit weird, but
he knows the whole time.
Yeah, he knows the whole time.
Yes.
So I don't know what he was doing, but Matt Damon was doing all the work.
James Badge Dale's character is the one where I'm just like, is he the one that Matt Damon's sleeping with?
I think they flirt in that scene when he says, "Do you like coming to work looking like you're about to invade Poland?"
Yeah.
It could go either way, because
and they're the ones sitting
to give my friends shit, right?
About firemen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they always have these weird moments that don't feel like, we never see Matt Damon succeed socially except with Madeline, and then we know where that goes. But I do feel like there's like a flirtation between the two of them. But please, Remy, back on track.
Anyway, with the culmination of that, the end of that movie, you get the sense of, oh, Leo's gonna win it, and then they yank the rug out from under you, and you get that feeling of, oh my god, is he gonna get away with this? But it's like Madeline, there's the tapes. Madeline finds out who the fuck this guy really is and leaves him while she's pregnant. So you get this little bit of sense of like, okay, his life kind of still, like, he doesn't win entirely.
That's what it is. I just realized he gives to Madeline evidence who Costello's rat is to give to Staff Sergeant Dignam.
That
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Nice, Zach. Detective Zach.
So that's how Wahlberg knows at the end of the movie what he got.
He
from
wanted
Vera.
to kill him anyways, but Leo knew I only have one other counterpart on Earth that knows who I am if I die, because I'm going to go make a citizen's arrest. Essentially, I need somebody who will facilitate getting this to him.
Yeah, that's why I said in the very beginning is, what was Wahlberg doing during that time, and how did he figure out about what Matt Damon's character did? So,
well, he hated him anyways. So
was
there.
So yeah, you get the feeling that Matt is, or that Colin is going to get away while still having some of his life shitty, because the people that he likes are dead, or his wife or girlfriend left him while pregnant. So it's like you get
the dog won't respond to his pets.
Yeah. That's it. Dog doesn't. Kids and dogs.
Not even the dog likes him. Not even the dog.
And the old lady's like, ugh.
The old lady like pulls the dog away from him. Too.
Yeah, she does. She kind of like tugs it, and then the pan up, like he opens the door, and then the slow pan up from the covered shoes up to Mark, and he's just not saying anything. He's just holding the gun. Is and it's just silent for us. It's just silence for a few seconds. And then he's just like, okay. And he just blasts him right in the head and just no words, puts on the beanie and then just walks out. And it pans up to the church, which is the church with the rat crawling across.
So subtle.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, very subtle.
Oh, I guess it was.
Very subtle.
The rat just rolling across. It's one of the most satisfying, if I think it might be the most satisfying finale, where it's just at the very last second of a movie.
Yeah.
Where it's just, that's the last scene, cut, movie over, and you just get away with it being like, wow, it's really fucked up. A lot of people died, but man, that felt really, feels really good. That payoff at the end is 10 out of 10.
What felt just as good, though, is the funeral scene and Matt seeing Vera crying while looking at the casket. And you start to see the realization of everything hitting Matt's face. Like, oh, shit, she did say that she had another client that was a cop, or something, and you can just start to see the gears turning and you can see everything.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And is together so much.
I never thought of it that way.
That's what I was thinking when they were at the funeral and he's seeing her at the funeral.
He sees her crying, yeah, and he's kind of
sees her crying, and he shows his face, and he's just kind of staring off.
He's so emasculated. I love it. Like he's even like, for as flirty as he is in the elevator, and he's so good looking and like whatever. He's so utterly emasculated by the end. Like even at the guy's funeral that she was banging, he just sheepishly asks her, "What about the baby?" And she just keeps walking. It's like, right on, girl, get it. Yeah, fuck this guy, right? Like he's a loser. He's a piece of trash. Then he tries to pet the dog. All the charm is evaporated, right? And it's just like, and I love like what you're talking about, Remy. Like this movie is so, and I don't know if Scorsese's ever done this better, and he probably has, or just as good. Every scene is symmetrical in a way, right? Like, or not every scene, a lot of the deaths, the most impactful ones. So Leo's character gets unceremoniously taken out, right? And where does it start? It starts at his feet and it pushes up. And you go, oh, that character I forgot about. Matt Damon unceremoniously dies. It starts at his feet. Oh, that character, I forgot about that, right? It's like, it's the same thing, but from different POVs. And it's just this wonderful thing where you forget about these characters, whether they're played by a high prominent actor or not, you somehow forget. And even like I've seen it a bunch of times, it's like, I don't know. I love that. It's just like, it's so, and that's never clear in the chase through the street when they're chasing each other. And there's the moment, I mean, there's a lot of movies do that where there's like the dangly mirrors and they kind of catch and you're like, how would he? Okay, well, whatever. But they're, you really, really start to see they're wearing the same outfit. There's really no aesthetic difference between the two of them, to the point where Queenan can't even tell who it is on the video, right? Even though Matt Damon deletes it. And this is the last little thing I want to say. In that scene, I love so much. Scorsese, I don't think has ever been known as a director that like speaks to broader commentary on race very often. But I do think he does. And I think he does it very subtly. And I think he, again, I don't know if it's a limitation, but I think he kind of knows this might not be like the area I want to commentate, but it is significant that Matt Damon murders a man who's Asian immigrant, it looks like, and it spends no time on it. And I don't think it's because I don't care about this person's worthless. It shows, I think, symbolically, that's the one scene he's wearing an American flag on his hat. It's more, gesturing at like, how do we care about these passerbys? Like, why are these guys who murdered more people more important than this person who unceremoniously dies? I think is the way and he does that in Goodfellas. He does it in Taxi Driver. And I think it's like, unlike Spielberg, who I love Spielberg, but I do think Spielberg will try and commentate on similar things, but he'll spend a lot more time on it, to where you kind of do go like, okay, Spielberg, like, are you really the person I want? I certainly don't want you directing The Color Purple. I'll tell you that much. Right. And like, but I think Scorsese does this really quick thing where he's like, this isn't what the story's about, but I'm going to let you think about this real quick. And I don't know. That was my last little thing, a little rabbit trail.
Yeah, that's good that he doesn't put that focus on that. You're right.
Jason, your thoughts on that whole wrap up?
I think the Wahlberg scene and the funeral scene, so impactful, and but gosh, wait, I had one more comment on the chase scene when they're running around each other. All I kept thinking about is in Marvel movies where they put on a baseball cap and
Yeah.
like pull up their collar on their thing, and they're somehow incognito now. You don't know who they are just because they're wearing a baseball cap. And I think they call it out in one of the Marvel movies or something like that. It's like, you just putting on a baseball cap doesn't mean that we don't know who you are. And I felt like that in that scene too. It's like,
Yeah.
you guys are just wearing dark jackets and baseball caps. There's now, if I wore that, people would still recognize me kind of out there. So it's just a very lame thing I think movies do to kind of put them in some sort of like costume or whatnot. But yeah, I couldn't say it better though, as far as one of the best endings to a movie, where it's like you didn't see it coming and now you're jumping up off the couch and just like, yes.
But are you though? I feel like it's very satisfying in that the bad person, the douchebag that you think is going to get away doesn't. So that's satisfying. But I feel like the movie is telling you, in a way, I mean, it's like not like Mark Wahlberg is ever hailed as a hero. He's not a police officer. He's a criminal if he gets caught, right? He's a murdering criminal if he gets caught. And it's justifiable, but he's not authorized to murder somebody that was also corrupt. So it's unsatisfying. He doesn't ever get to share in that with anybody. Everybody's dead who committed all these acts. And I feel like that is just like with The Irishman and like Casino and Goodfellas in a way. Scorsese does make violence so picturesque and satisfying. But when you really think about it for more than a second, you're like, but he's not saying that that's cool. Look at all the destruction.
And I'm more like, I am definitely this vigilante justice and the brokenness of our system. Yeah. Sometimes shit needs to be taken into your own hands.
Sure.
So I think that's what I kind of took away from that final scene, is that he was never going to get caught and he was able to work the system. And this was the only way that we were going to get any sort of justice or finale to it. So, and I mean, more Mark Wahlberg and being the hero. And I'm just like, yeah, I want a whole movie just about him and his character and where he goes now. Yeah, what's next for Mark Wahlberg?
Shooter.
That is, I would push back a little, Zach, in that I do agree that it's not like a happy ending, but it is extremely satisfying. I would say extremely satisfying, especially on the Scorsese scale, because his endings typically leave you just, wow, like the ending of Goodfellas, you're just like, that kind of sucks. The ending of The Irishman, wow, this sucks. Travis Bickle's end in Taxi Driver is just like, I don't feel like he's going to live happily ever after. But this is like a movie, and again, it's in a movie sense. If we examine the collateral damage and the horrible things that are going on, or the fact that the police were so easily infiltrated multiple times over by multiple people, I think all of those things, if you examine them as far as social commentary, it's not a happy ending. But as far as cinema, baby, as far as Marty Scorsese's favorite word, cinema, I mean, it is the closer, or as Jim Carrey will call it, the button to put on the cap of this movie. Is just, oh man,
it's so cinematic.
Feeling like it really sucks because everyone's dead, but that shot is so. And the other thing that we've already talked about, but the amount of scenes in this movie where they don't go into definitive detail, like Matt Damon's sex life, or who's good and who's bad, and there's a lot of open-ended questions still with a lot of the characters, and even going back to the whole like the body getting dumped in the marsh and then being found the next day. It's like, and he's like, I don't know how they found the body, and they say it's a cop, and Jack Nicholson saying, oh, like of course they're going to say it's a cop, so we don't think so. But it's like, did Jack Nicholson tell them where the body was? There's things like that I love, and the ending of this movie, we don't necessarily know Diggum's like his whole. We don't know where he is on the good guy scale, or good or bad. Is he just a cop that always followed the books and he's just rough around the edges? Is he corrupt? Is he a guy that was working? Is he? There's no definitive answer, which I really appreciate.
That's what I was trying to say, and there is. I'm not pretending at all there's a right answer to this. I just agree with you. I think it's so cinematic. I mean, I remember slowing down Matt Damon's death scene because it looks so real, and there's no, I mean, obviously it's 2004 or 5, but like it's just amazing shot of this person getting, shot through the head, but like if you stop and think about what characters have survived, which is Dignam and Madeline, essentially, of your main cast, they're both going to have miserable lives. Not maybe forever, but the one person she may have seemed to love in the glimpse we got dies. Her boyfriend that she moved in with, total sham, right? And then like Mav, you just pointed out, like there's a lot of nuance and mystery to Dignam's character as far as like what side did he actually land on, right? And he is a murderer, right? And it is satisfying for that moment because it is so cinematic and so satisfying. But I think that's what Scorsese does, and where he's been. I don't know that there's like an anti-Scorsese campaign, but like Fight Club and these other movies I mentioned, where it's just like, just think for a second. Like, he's not saying that this is like cool. It looks cool, just like it's looked cool in a lot of stuff, but like he's actually doing a better job satirizing it by being like, no, look at the reward, look at what you reap, right? Like, it's just, I don't know, it's so cool.
Just like the curb stomping scene in Goodfellas. It's like you
And
wanted to see that dude get his
Irishman.
comeuppance.
Well, it's a running theme through all of his movies. It's like
Yeah.
these main characters are not something or someone you should want to be, you know?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And real quickly, Mark Ralston, I just want to point out too,
Yes,
the
Mark
great character actor from Aliens. And Shawshank Redemption, and just
also
I love
Norman
seeing
Osborn
him.
in the Spider-Man PS4 video game.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's a great Norman Osborn.
Yeah.
You know, he's something of a Norman Osborn himself.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
Hey, when they say that in the newest Spider-Man movie, he's so good.
They do?
Yeah. There's
Oh my God! Speaking of Spider-Man, Martin Sheen, when he has to recapitulate the great power comes great responsibility in the Andrew Garfield one, it's like the most labored over recapitulation. He's like, so if you knew that there was something bad that you had to intervene, you would do that moral thing. And it's like, what the fuck? Why not just stick with what was working?
No, they do that.
Well,
they also do that in the MCU, where it's just like, if you're nothing with the suit, you're nothing without the suit. It's like, just fucking say great power, great responsibility, you asshole.
Well, when we got another chance, then to the Spider-Verse, the second one's coming out.
Won't see that. So,
boo, tomato.
Anyway, we need to wrap this up. Gentlemen, final thoughts. Anything else you want to touch on in the movie that is The Irishman before we get to our ratings?
Oh, The Irishman.
Sorry,
I thought we watched The Departed.
I was thinking of that other masterpiece, Remy.
How dare you? My final thought is, do jerk-off theaters still exist?
Yeah.
That was such a random thing. I was watching the movie. I'm like, oh yeah, there's these theaters where just a bunch of strangers go into a room and fucking whack.
No, you are not. You never were allowed to, and you would be actively thrown out if you were. They're porn theaters still, and were.
I mean,
but if they caught you, they would immediately throw you out.
Yeah, and why would you want to do that? Being in a room full of people doing that?
Because
hey man,
there used to not be the internet.
Yeah, back when if you didn't have VHS tapes or before VHS tapes, and it's like you wanted to see some nudity, and hey man, doesn't look like there's a whole lot of other people.
2006. They had VHS. These people could go watch it on a TV.
No,
hey man, there's still a dirty video store down the street from me, so things persist.
That you take home and watch at your home. I'm really just getting to the point where I think this is mostly for homeless people.
Oh my God, can you imagine like a San Francisco oh my God.
I don't have to imagine. What do you think my plans are after this? I don't know. Scorsese has always loved the pornographic theaters.
Yeah, that's the thing
in a lot of his films.
Yeah, going back to the Taxi Driver, is that it is a running theme.
It's a seedy meeting point for people to talk about stuff in private. One-liners. I think we should all have our favorite one-liner from it. Is, can't trust a guy who's got nothing to lose. I like that one. Yeah. No, I'm the guy who does his job, so you must be the other guy. Yeah, those are the two that I wrote down as some of my favorites.
I'm the guy who does his job. You must be the other guy.
Exactly, yeah. Your boss much better than mine. But I have no final thoughts. I am so happy with this, and I'm so glad we're doing movies like this. And I think it's a good lead up to the Flowers, conversation that we'll be having about Scorsese's newest one. But yeah, I like our deviation from the fantasy.
You mean this book, Killers of the Flower Moon?
Yes, yeah. But yeah, like I said last time with Air, I'm liking this different type of movies that we're talking about and reviewing. Yeah. But good times, guys.
So rating system. You can give the movie whatever rating you want. Thumbs up, thumbs down. You recommend, you don't recommend. It's a 1 out of 5, 10 out of 5, 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. However you want to rate it, you can rate it. For me, it's an easy. This is a 10 out of 10 for me. This is one out of approximately 25 movies that I have a 10 out of 10 rating for. And this clearly fits the bill.
I'm going to go.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Jason. Let's start over. When I don't interrupt you, please go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sticking with my original rating. I like thumbs sideways down is going to be mine.
Ooh.
Really, really high up on the thumb
I
scale.
like it.
I'm gonna give it a 4.75 out of 5.
That's
I think
douchey.
it's better than a 4.5. There's just just little things with like Vera Farmiga's character. Again, not she's terrific. I just think there's little things. It feels like it was shot really quickly, which is amazing considering how good it is. I love this movie. Like I said, I think it's Scorsese playing to the hits, and they're all the best ones. Um, and yeah, it's just a terrific movie. I think it's the best DiCaprio Scorsese collaboration too, as far as his performance, just everything going on there. I love that the very next year Matt Damon completed his trilogy arc as this like broken and kind of withdrawn hero in a sense, but absolutely a likable good guy. And he is so, you guys were talking about Air, he's just so like, he looks like your friend's dad, and not just because he's bigger, he just is like a very, very, very likable, competent actor who mostly has played really likable people, and he's so despicable and douchey in this movie. So I just think it really, like all of you have said in different ways, like Scorsese got the best performance out of a standout cast, and I love it.
5 out of 5. Perfect as a movie can be. I don't think that I really do feel that way. There is no such thing as like a movie that has no flaws at all, but this is as good as it can get. For me, anyway.
Jack Nicholson's in that movie as good as it gets.
Yes. I was definitely intentionally making that connection.
There you
5
go.
out of 5.
And that's Last Page.